Going live in 3, 2, 1.
Hello, everyone. Jesse and Andy here with the Biohazard Declassified Podcast. Today we've got a very special guest, JJ from the Residents of Evil. Say hello,
everybody.
JJ.
Hey, guys. Thank you very much for having me on. I appreciate it. Looking forward to this.
This is going to be fantastic. Yeah. The most ambitious crossover since the Avengers. Probably goes without saying.
So it's good. Can we live up to the hype?
Sure. So JJ, tell us a little bit about the row.
Okay.
I know you guys have been around for a couple of years, but where did the row start?
Okay, so I'll try to keep it short. It's a pretty long story, but started the Residents of Evil on Facebook back in 2012. So I've been a huge fan of Resident Evil ever since 2 came out. It was my favorite game. I just always loved the series. So when Capcom had first teased at a Resident Evil 2 remake, I was very excited. So I jumped on Facebook and I found the remake Resident Evil 2 fan page. And I wanted to support a remake any way I could. They said if the audience asked nicely, they'll do it. So I joined that. And then I seen how large the community was online. And I've always been a fan, but, I live in a small town. So I don't have a lot of people that share the similar passion of Resident Evil like I do. So when I seen there was this huge group of people that loved the series like I did, I was like, well, I'm going to start a fan page. So I started the Residents of Evil. And, over time, chatting with the admin of the remake Resident Evil 2 page, he helped my channel out a lot by sharing it. And eventually I joined that page too to help push the movement for a Resident Evil 2 remake. Then years went by. I streamed a lot on Twitch. I did sort of all different things. And I just really I had a lot I wanted to discuss about Resident Evil. I love video editing and graphic design. So I was like, I'm just going to start a YouTube channel where I talk about Resident Evil, do some live streams, all that sort of thing. So it was shortly after Resident Evil 7, I finally felt like the hype was back for Resident Evil. I really did enjoy Resident Evil 7. And after I got done playing it, I just wanted to go back and play the original Resident Evil. So I started the channel. I started making content and, I'm very grateful because a lot of people in the community actually enjoyed the content more than I expected. And so then over time, I had a few others that I brought on the Facebook page to help me, as editors. And we're like, hey, let's do a podcast because we're, big fans of different podcasts. Like we like Crimson Head. I used to listen to, I still do, Let's Talk Resident Evil. And like, let's all get together and chat. And so it was our first time as a team coming together and we just got along great. We had a great time. We talked about Resident Evil. And we're like, let's try doing a team stream with Outbreak. So we got online and we got that working. And we're just like, we have really good chemistry. We all share the similar passion. And so from there, we just kind of created the Row team. And we all took different, chunks of, content. Like I make videos a lot. Ollie's in front of the interviews. We started getting, actors, voice actors. Like Allison Court was one of our first ones. And we're like, yeah, let's just interview, these people that we idolize as kids, that played these iconic characters. Let's do discussion videos. Let's cover news. And here we are today. It's gone way further than I ever expected. And I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah. And obviously you started 3 years ago. If we just bring this page up here.
Yes. The YouTube channel started 3 years ago.
Indeed. And you've just hit 191,000 subscribers, which for a niche community is insane growth.
Yeah, it to this day it blows my mind. I feel like I have the mentality, like I feel like the content I work on is maybe 25,000, and to see that there's so much support for us and that people enjoy the content we make to the point where we're at 191,000 is more than I could ever ask for. Like it blows my mind.
Oh, indeed. And looking back at your channel here, your one of your first videos was actually Resident Evil 7. So, yeah. I mean, would you call yourself a classic Resident Evil fan, or would you say you were pushing more towards sort of Resident Evil 4, 5, and 6, or the new generation with remake? I mean, where would you kind of put yourself in those?
Good question. I'm 100% a diehard classic fan. Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3 are just like the pinnacle of survival horror for me. But that doesn't mean I don't appreciate some aspects of, the later series. You know, 4, 5, and 6 it was sort of a turning point where I just kind of I took a few years off from the series. Like as diehard of a fan as I was when those came out, you know, a lot of people enjoyed them, and that's totally fine. They just weren't for me. So I kind of stepped away, and it wasn't until Resident Evil 7, well, actually shortly before, I revisited Resident Evil 5, you know, years after it came out. And I picked it up, and I came home from work, and I called my cousin over, and I was like, hey, let's, you know, give this game a shot. You know, it's been years, and I just want to check it out. And honestly, it was the most fun co-op game I've ever played. We stayed up from the time I got off work, 13 hours. I took a shower, went to work with no sleep. So I was like, oh, maybe, you know, these are still fun games. They're not what I grew up with, but they're still enjoyable in their own way. And then 7 was coming out, you know, well, then we played 6, and, you know, that one had some issues, but 7 came out, and it just kind of reinvigorated my hype for the series. You know, I got the collector's edition. You know, I was working at GameStop at the time. So, you know, I just remember like talking to all different people that came into work about it. And then I played it, and I was like, it got me back into it, I guess you could say. But 1, 2, and 3, man. And, you know, those will always have a place in my heart for sure.
Original and still the best.
Yeah, definitely.
Often imitated.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, so with that, you know, you do a lot in the Resident Evil community. I know, you know, you've got the videos, you've got the YouTube, Twitch, and then you've got this other massively ambitious project going on. Tell us a little bit about Vigil, because I know this is a huge undertaking that you've got going on with some other large names within the content community as well.
Yeah. So basically it goes back to, you know, my love and passion for the classic series. There's something about fixed camera angles that I feel like it's sort of, a lot of people will say it's dated, and I just feel like it's a lost art. And, you know, and what kind of proof to my point was when I played Until Dawn. I was like, before Resident Evil 7 came out, I was like, man, this would be an amazing direction for the series. Like, this is fixed camera angles for the modern day. And, you know, 7 came out and it was first person. And that aside, I was like, there's still that classic survival horror community out there that, you know, wants these type of games to come back. You know, if I'm excited for it, you know, I know there's a lot of other people that want to see tank controls, fixed camera angles, but brought to the modern day. And so I'm a huge fan of Resident Evil fan games. You know, the talent from the community always blows my mind. And I came across Moonglint, who was working on a fan Resident Evil game. And I was like, man, his stuff is really good. Here's a lot of potential here. So I messaged him, and I was like, hey, man, you know, I really like your project. You're doing a great job. And, you know, we started talking, and I was like, would you be interested in making, you know, we have an idea for a game. Would you be interested? And I kind of pitched the idea, and he's like, for sure. He's like, the project I was working on was just for fun, but I didn't really have a story or anything. He's like, you know, with the story, you know, I would love to be part of this. So he's our developer, Moonglint. He is phenomenal. He's one guy, but he's doing the work of a team. And so over time, we all started discussing ideas, and the game has shifted and evolved so much from when we started it to where it is now. Originally, it was supposed to kind of be like a goofy sort of parody of Resident Evil to pay homage to the classic survival horror genre. And when we released our first announcement that we were going to be working on a game, it got way more attention than we expected. And a lot of people were excited, but there was also a lot of people that said, you know, like, it's not original, it's, you know, this and that. And we stopped and we're like, okay, so way more people are interested in this game than we expected. We need to really sit down and think about how we want to approach this, you know. And we kind of shifted focus to an all original game, original story, original characters. Like, it's going to play and feel and pay homage to the classic survival horror genre, but it's going to have its own original story. And we worked really hard to make it unique and different, I guess you could say. So, you know, it's definitely a passion project for all of us. We're all very passionate about classic survival horror. So we want to incorporate a lot of that from the past, and then, you know, add our own spin and take on it.
Yeah, and just on that point then, obviously you mentioned it's going to be very, very unique. Obviously, I'll take it's just pen for PC at this point. But what is the story What's it actually? As much as you can reveal, of course.
Yeah.
We don't want to put you on a gunpoint here. But what is the story at its core, and where do you really want it to go? How do you want people to feel when they're playing it?
I want people to feel the nostalgia they felt when they first played Resident Evil or Silent Hill. That sense of atmosphere and isolation. Feeling like you're overwhelmed, but you still can fight back, right? That's survival horror. Item management, having the option to fight back. I want people to re-feel that nostalgia, but I also want to subvert expectations in a way to be like, oh, I thought it was going to be this thing, but it's this thing. That's really cool. Subvert in a good way. So the story basically is very simple. We're the Reconnaissance Operations Unit 3 RO team, and we've been sent to investigate some. I haven't really went through a lot of the story before because we're always careful with how much we reveal because, again, it goes back to surprising people. So we're sent in to investigate something basically, and we're a reconnaissance investigation team. So that's kind of how it starts, but it quickly takes a turn and our team, our lore, we got a lot of lore behind the game. We're used to, the paranormal and the odd, things that can't be explained, but this is something we aren't prepared for. And so there's this mysterious Abyss character we've showed art for, and she's going to have an integral role in the story. I don't really know how much more I want to give, but it's just expect to be surprised in a good way.
Yeah. And I mean, you can definitely tell like the passion put into this from, a love of survival horror standpoint. And with that, like, speaking of more like modern, like, AAA games, like, do you think that the classic formula for survival horror is gone? Like, is that something that has dated itself out of existence and it's just up to people like Moonglint and others in the fan community to continue that survival horror legacy?
And unfortunately, I do feel like for the most part it's gone. There are still a few games that come out that really kind of go back to that style of gameplay, but the majority of it is coming from indie teams, and it's unfortunate. But the thing with our game is we know if we went over the shoulder, we know if we went with everything modernized, we would have a lot more attention on it, right? But the thing is, we're not planning on doing this for money. We're not planning on doing this to have a studio recognition. We're doing this because we want to. So having that means we can do what we want to do. We're not answering to anybody. This is the kind of game we want to make. This is what we want to do. So I'm very grateful that, everybody on the team shares that similar passion. It's a classic survival horror fan game, or I want to say a game for fans by fans, basically.
And that's a point I feel like you're really not pushing on. And and correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't want to stamp on your toes, but you are releasing this free.
Yeah, that was the goal when we started, and it's to this day, it's the goal. Again, we really want people to understand that, there's no monetary gain from this. This is a passion project. And I feel like, a lot of people ask, why is it only PC? Well, at the moment, we're trying to get it out on PC. We're a very small team, so we're taking it one step at a time. But I would love to one day get this on, consoles as well, because the whole point of putting it out for free is to give it out to as many people as possible, to kind of give people that classic survival horror that now, AAA studios aren't doing anymore.
If we can we go into a little bit more of the technical aspect to this? So, for example, what engine you're running, soundtrack, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Fill us in a little bit.
Okay, so we're developing this currently in Unreal Engine 4. Moonglint is very knowledgeable and comfortable with that engine, so that's what we're using. Right now, we just want to focus on getting the game done, so we're not going to be porting over anything to Unreal Engine 5. I think personally, it looks fine as is. We just want to continue with our development. As far as soundtrack, music and the score is crucial to a survival horror game. And one thing with Vigil is you'll notice in a lot of modern horror games there's this ramping up of a score, there's this tension. But when you go back to classic Resident Evil games, every room you went in had a loud soundtrack, right? And it's not the same as nowadays where it's trying to build the suspension. But the thing with the classic music is you remember that game so vividly because of the music. You would go to a different area and you'd have that music playing. It wasn't like a score. And that's what we wanted to do with this, is we wanted to, have those very memorable soundtracks that create ease and tension and, where they need to. So Mono Memory is a fantastic composer, I guess you would say, on YouTube. And he does cover a lot of Resident Evil songs. And I've known him for a while now because he did our theme song. And I, mentioned to him, like, would you be interested in doing the soundtrack for Vigil? The game takes place in the 80s, and he's got that synth horror style, very John Carpenter-esque. And John Carpenter mixed with Resident Evil. And I was like, we could get some of that, man. So he started doing some of the music. They're like, that's fantastic. That's exactly what we want. And so Mono joined on to do the soundtrack for Vigil. And I think he's doing an absolutely fantastic job. And he's nailing that sort of art style direction we're going for.
Oh, indeed. And again, we're big fans of Mono Memory. We share a lot of his music on the stream. We love a bit of synthwave. So, but it's interesting. So synthwave. I mean, it won't necessarily be synthwave, but
not synthwave, but
yeah. His style is that. So, what do you really want out of his soundtrack? How do you want that? Do you want it to be kind of montagey to the original, or have you taken this in a completely original style, and it's going to be like nothing we've ever heard before?
It's completely original. Now, when I say I want it to be reminiscent of Resident Evil soundtrack, in the fact that the music is always there, it's always playing, and it's always memorable. But as far as the sound of it, we put the soundtrack out, and there's comparisons to Nightmare on Elm Street, John Carpenter's The Thing. I even heard some that sounded very much like The Shining. And so, you take all these classic horror movies and games and you kind of compile them in to create something original. And it's just a really cool sound that really helps the game form an identity.
So where can we support Vigil? I mean, has it got its own social media? I mean, how can we, if people are really enjoying this, I believe you've got a beta or an alpha out at the moment.
Yes.
Just run us past that.
Okay. So, yes. So our goal is to put the game out for free, but game development is far more expensive than we assumed at the beginning. So right now Vigil is it's only possible because of our patrons. Our patrons are helping fund this game and this project because it is a lot of time and it is very expensive. So if you guys would like to help support the project, you can head over to patreon.com/ROENETWORK, ROENETWORK. And we have some different tier levels in there. And, any little bit helps. We're not asking a lot. And if you have the means, we really appreciate it. It helps make this possible. If not, just, watching the videos, liking, sharing with your friends, anything helps there too. But we have different tier levels, different ways of sponsoring. And what we think is cool with Patreon is you get something back. You're not just giving us money to make the game, which inevitably you would get the game back in return, but you get other cool behind the scenes sort of things, pictures and stuff we don't share on social media, and just little updates on the game. But yeah, again, and I mean, supporting the channel through super chats, all that helps too, but Patreon's the best way.
Understood.
Now,
well, go on, Jess.
Now, what about release time frame? Because I know, you've been working on this project for about a year and a half now.
About a year and a half, yeah.
When are we looking to possibly see? Because I know that even the demo, it's been a while since an updated demo has come out.
Yeah, there's a reason why we haven't released, because what we want to do is release little snippets so people can kind of see the progress, not just from us posting pictures, but they could actually play the progress. The thing with that is as cool as that was, and as much as we enjoyed releasing those small snippets, they were time consuming. And we often found that development was sort of halted to polish an alpha demo, right? And so we shifted focus now onto just development from the very basics. We've come a long ways now, but we just shifted our mentality on the game to not just take time to put out these little snippets, but to actually make a game. So our goal right now is to have a complete alpha version of the game by the end of this year. And then our goal is to have the game fully complete towards the end of next year. And I'm just kind of giving us a little extra time there to be safe. Again, it's a very small team, a very small, dedicated, passionate, and talented team, but a small team. So we're trying, I have the row, a full-time job. Others have jobs too. So we're trying to do it in the spare time and not overwork ourselves.
So just on that point, the Residents of Evil team. What's the dynamic? Yes. What is going on over at Row HQ?
Oh, there's so many things going on here. It's awesome, but it's a little complex. So we have the Row team, which is made up of myself, Ollie, Tony, Bob, and Corey. And Corey and Bob are often seen in videos and streams. Tony is seen in the podcast, and he makes videos, when I don't have time. Ollie is in front of all of our interviews, getting the voice actors, developers, and setting up our big live event. So that's the Row team. But we also have our extended team. We have the Row Force, which is our mod team that help keep everything in order. They're the backbone of the Row. They're the reason why I can focus on streaming and making content and not have to worry about, trolls and stuff like that. So a huge shout out to them. We have other members of the extended team that work on content like Distant Memories and Xander that are making these stories and doing posts to our Facebook and social media pages. And we have the Vigil development team, which, we have our developer Moonglint, Mono doing the music, Uni and Dakota doing the art and 3D modeling. We have Rick, who's actually, he is right now the project manager of the game. So I'm directing it, and he's sort of overseeing, making sure that we are hitting goals and we are, doing things in the proper order. He is also he's a professional at photogrammetry. So he did the model for my character in the game. He's very talented. We have, the Row team doing writing. There's just a lot. There's a lot of people to row, in all different directions. I'm working with people in the community, people in the Row every day. And I hope I'm not missing anybody, but there's a lot to go over there.
So the chaps in this picture here, these are the core chaps, and obviously everyone's favorite Resident Evil 2 voice actor. Nick Apostolides in that. What happened in this? I'd love to know the backstory of this.
For sure. So Nick Apostolides, Leon Kennedy himself. He's an amazing guy. Very down to earth, and he is Leon Kennedy. Like, he embodies the character, but he is an honorary Row team member. So we, for our 3-year anniversary, we decided to plan a trip to PAX South. We were going to be doing a panel there. And so we got the entire team together, and we invited Nick, and he was totally down to go. So what happened is we all flew out to PAX South, and before the convention, we all got together at Ollie's friend's house. We, had a little barbecue cookout, and then we did a stream of Resident Evil 4. So this is all of us together. Our first night all together, taking a picture next to the pool table, and then after that, we did a stream. It was such a fun night, and it was really cool to get to see everybody, because that was the first time that I've got to meet Nick, Tony, and Ollie in person. We've been a team for a little over 3 years, and we've never met in person. And so this is the first time for all of us to come together. And it was just such a fun experience that I'll never forget.
Oh, that's beautiful. And that's it. Obviously, we feel the sense of camaraderie with the Row team. Obviously, you bounce off each other. Obviously, I've seen quite a few of your podcasts now. You bounce off each other. You have that core chemistry. So it's good that you've surrounded yourself with people that are also like-minded.
Yeah, very great guys. Very passionate about the series. And just I've been working with them now for over 3 years. We get along great.
So touching on, you had Nick, you've had quite a few voice actor guests on your podcast from the Resident Evil community. I don't want to say what's your favourite, because everybody is your favourite, goes without saying. Don't want to burn any bridges here. But what has been the most interesting, and what are your favourite memories from from your Residents of Evil podcast?
I mean, there's so many highlights that I could go on all day, but one that really stands out to me that it really is just, I'm very thankful and grateful I got the opportunity, but that would be our Let's Play live podcast with Paul Haddad, the original voice actor for Leon Kennedy. Since he's unfortunately passed, so rest in peace, Paul. He was a good friend, an idol to so many in the community. He's going to be dearly missed, but the fact that I got to meet my childhood hero basically and play the game with him, and it was his first time he's got to see Resident Evil 2 in its entirety. He's only seen pictures and snippets of the game, but he's never actually got to watch his performance in the game fully, because he never had, at the time, he didn't have the funds to go out and buy the game and a console, and Capcom didn't give him those things. So the fact that he got to experience his performance in the game for the first time with us was truly an honor. Like, it's just one of those things that, all the time, everything with the row, it just all builds to a moment like that. And that's when it's everything is worth it, as you could say.
And that is absolutely crazy when you really think about it. You think iconic movie stars and that sort of thing, that they would have seen themselves like. But the fact that Paul had never seen Resident Evil 2, which is, and again, I don't want to speak out of turn, but probably his most iconic role.
Yeah,
is absolutely insane
to us, for sure. He's a fantastic actor, voice actor. He's done a lot of great things, but to our community, he's known as the original definitive Leon Kennedy, I guess you could say. Leon's always been my favorite character ever since I first played Resident Evil 2 as a kid. And he's definitely an icon. I mean, he made the character. During our Let's Play with him, he explained, his thoughts going into the character, how he wanted him to sound, how he wanted to portray him. And it was just so interesting getting to hear all that backstory. And it all made sense. Like, yeah, that makes sense, that this is how he sounds, this is how he acts. Like, just to hear him mentally prepare for the role is just so cool.
And what I'd love to hear your thoughts on, now that we're talking about Resident Evil 2, is we made, and you was off air, you was talking about the remake. Oh, sorry, at the start of this podcast, you was talking about a remake Resident Evil 2, that sort of things. What did you feel now that you've spoken with Nick Apostolidis? What did you feel about Leon's new rendition, for use of a better term? How did you feel that compared to the original?
So Nick Apostolidis is an amazing person and very talented actor and voice actor. And, not only did he do the character justice and have a great performance and all that you would expect of a talented voice actor, but he loves the series. He's very into the community, and he was a very big fan of Paul Haddad. He never, he said this, he never wanted to replace his role or anything. He wanted to pay respect, and he wanted to do, justice to the character. And you can really hear it and see it. And, whenever he's talking in a live stream or doing a panel, he is the best person to play that character. Having somebody that's so passionate and, about the original actor in the community is, we got lucky having Nick Apostolidis as Leon. Yeah,
we did, because obviously he is, and we've had him on the podcast before. He is a massive Resident Evil fan in general, which is, I'm not saying it's rare, but is dime a dozen almost, because he is super into Resident Evil.
Yeah.
Moving out from that central point about just Leon, what did you think of, as a broad brush, the remakes in general? Not necessarily Resident Evil Remake 1, because that's kind of a red herring, but the 2 and the 3 remakes that come out recently. I'd love to know your thoughts.
Okay, so, the driving factor behind the Residents of Evil and the remake page and the YouTube channel has always sort of been to push for a Resident Evil 2 remake. So, that's another highlight of my life in the channel, was the day it got showcased at E3. It was all the hype for so many years and all the, trying to push for it, that it finally was here. it was just a moment I'll never forget. And I knew this game had so many expectations to live up to. I knew that I don't care, I knew it was never going to be better than the original for me. There's too much nostalgia there. But if it's, on par, I'll be happy. And, they announced that they were going a new direction with Over the Shoulder. And, personally, I loved Resident Evil 1 Remake. I know you didn't want to get into that, but I feel like that's remake perfection. So when they announced they were doing that, I was just like, okay, they have a direction they want to go, and I'm going to trust them, and I'm going to go into it with an open mindset, and I'm still super excited. And so when I actually played it, and it was I was pleasantly surprised that, because I knew it was never going to meet my high expectations, it met the expectations I had set for it. I kept my expectations in check, I guess you could say. And I loved it. I mean, the atmosphere was there. The, there was, the story was there. It was told in a different way. And the thing with that is, if I could have it my way, it would be like the Resident Evil 1 remake. But it's still a great game. And it's still, I don't feel like it takes the place of the original. They both exist. So not only do we have this, what I would consider a masterpiece, but we have this other great retelling of that. So, we just have more, basically. There was a few things in there, like the quiet music that, and the A and B scenarios, not having that zapping system like the original. And what else? Oh, cutting the marshalling yard that I wasn't a fan of. So there was definitely flaws, but it was far outweighed by the hype and experience and the gameplay and actually getting to re-experience it, 20 years later, that I really enjoyed that. Now 3, on the other hand, no, that was just icing on the cake for us fans that just got the 2. We wanted a 3, and sure enough, was it less than a year later they announced it, and I was super excited for that too. I loved the original as a kid, and when I played it, we played through it, and I would definitely say I have more complaints with 3 than I did with 2. But how do I put it? Because this is a in-depth subject, and I'm trying to explain it in a way that I can discuss it quickly.
It was very polarizing. Very polarizing.
Definitely.
That's the vibe that we got. Would you say, Jesse?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way to explain it. So, as far as keeping your expectations in check and knowing it'll never take the place of the original, and it's its own thing, its own game, separate, I enjoyed it. It was like watching a movie. As far as being a faithful, proper remake, it was absolutely not that. Capcom said from the beginning it's a reimagining, and this is the most reimagined game of the 3 remakes. So I feel like from faithfulness, it went 1 into 2 into 3. Like the faithfulness of the remakes sort of slipped away as they went. But this, I have complaints with this game. It's not perfect. There was a lot of moments in there where I was just like, that's kind of disheartening. But there was other moments too. I was like, that was really cool. That was fun. So it's like it's a roller coaster ride that you can enjoy for a short experience, but don't, think about it too much. Whereas, 1 was like perfect.
Yeah, proper faithful.
But so yeah, I really enjoyed 2. I did enjoy 3, but I have my issues with it. But 1, man, that's where it's at. 1 remake.
Oh no, agreed. And I've said this on the podcast before. Like, I really feel like Resident Evil 1 really kind of spoiled us in a way, really, because like it was just such a. It was just it in effect, aside from the nostalgia value, it's made Resident Evil 1, the original, redundant. I don't feel like you need, unless you're playing it like we do, because we're super Resident Evil fans.
Yeah,
you don't really need to go back and experience it, because Resident Evil 1 remake tells the story and tells it far better. Whereas I don't believe that's the case for Resident Evil 2 and 3.
But also on 1, like the thing is, even though I feel like Resident Evil, like if you had asked me what is the best made Resident Evil game, it would be Resident Evil 1 remake. What is my favorite? Resident Evil 2, the original. What do I prefer, Resident Evil 1 or Resident Evil 1 remake? I would have to say the original Resident Evil 1, again, because there's a lot of nostalgia there. And I do feel like Deadly Silence is the best version of Resident Evil 1. But there's just something about the, cheesy dialogue, the very bright rooms, the music, the B style to it, and just playing it as a kid, going from Resident Evil 2, finding out there was another one that was out. Having my dad's friend actually had the game, and he let me borrow it with the strategy book, and it's just that experience is the reason why that one is my better version of Resident Evil 1. Technically, it's Resident Evil 1 remake, but to me personally, it's the original. So they both exist. Again, you have a remake and you have the original. It's just more.
Now, speaking on the remakes, what do you think is going to be next for Capcom in the Resident Evil remake series?
Well, I mean, talking with you and I know that there's a lot of buzz out there for Resident Evil 4 remake. So personally, I would, want a Resident Evil Outbreak remake. I think that is the perfect time for that series to come back. I know the mass majority of the community want a Code Veronica remake, but we know there's a really good chance for a Resident Evil 4 remake. So if I had to put my money on something, it would be a Resident Evil 4 remake. Yeah, that's gonna be a tough one, man. That's a big game, and if after 3, people are gonna be very, skeptical on if they can deliver, because to me, Resident Evil 2 is the best, but I think the mass majority of the community, Resident Evil 4 is the big one. So good luck.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I don't know if I would want to be on that team that was, gets told like, oh yeah, by the way, you're doing the Resident Evil 4 remake. Good luck.
Yeah, right.
Imagine
the responsibility.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a massive game to undertake in the first place. Compared to all of the original games, like maybe Code Veronica comes closest in length, or Zero or Code Veronica comes closest to 4, and total time to play and everything. So it's just such a massive thing to take on, and they'll have to nail it. They can't. And I'm always kind of on either side of the cut content argument from 2 and 3 remakes, because I understand the cuts, and some of the cuts I don't really care for. Yeah. But 4 having so many unique environments, if one thing gets cut, all of it falls apart.
It ruins the flow of the game. So that's one thing with Resident Evil 4 is it had this very steady pace of changing environments to keep the game, because modern day survival horror games, you're not doing a whole lot of backtracking anymore. You're constantly moving through areas, and to do that right, I would think Resident Evil 6 would be a good comparison. Resident Evil 4, you're steadily moving through areas enough to where you're continuing progression and you're getting enough of these areas to make them memorable. Whereas Resident Evil 6, you're moving through them so fast, you don't remember what the hell you're doing. Game's over and you're like, oh yeah, that was a wild ride. Yeah. And it's just 4 has such a good flow to it that, you have to maintain that and you can't water it down. And that's, I think, what the main problem with Resident Evil 3 remake was. I feel like they didn't have enough time. Honestly, I feel like with more time, there was a portion in there where you can change where you want the train to go, the tram. And I feel like they wanted to let you choose your path of the game and have those moments from the original, but they didn't have the time. So they made it a really pathetic puzzle, probably the only puzzle in the game, and just kept it very linear. Whereas if they had more time and they let you experience different paths to the game, you'd go back and replay it and try the different areas. That's what I think personally.
And that's a really valid point. And again, you are a massive connoisseur of Resident Evil, just like us. I remember the leaks, or not leaks, I mean rumors, whatever you want to, however you want to put it, saying that there was going to be a fast travel system in Resident Evil 3. Where did that disappear to?
Like all of the journalistic outlets and stuff saying, oh yeah, like there's going to be all this free roam city, there's going to be a fast travel. It's like, well, I want to play the press copy they got.
Yeah, I mean, the free roam city, that would have been awesome.
And
I think the most free roam in the city we got was with the demo.
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately.
Agreed. It did feel like a linear game. And on that point, now that we're segueing into leaks here.
Ooh.
Dangerous territory.
What did you think? What did you think, JJ? I'd love to know your thoughts on Resident Evil 8. I saw your reveal when you were streaming the PS5 event on Row. What did you think? Now that you've collected your thoughts, you've got your emotions in check, what did you feel?
when that trailer came up, there was a part of me that's like, this is Resident Evil 8, because Jesse and I are well into the world of leaks and rumors. And a lot of the stuff we heard was so out there that it could never be real. And I've done a lot of videos on it, and people were excited Resident Evil 8's coming out, but I just had so many comments like, there's not going to be werewolves. This is ridiculous. And Jesse and I were like, these are echoed from so many different people that there's a good chance this could be real. So when the trailer dropped, I was just like, this has got to be Resident Evil 8. And then I heard Mia's voice, and it was Mia. I didn't recognize her voice right away, but then I recognized Ethan's voice, and I was like, dude, this is Resident Evil 8. This is 100% it. And I had an idea from the rumors and leaks in my head of what it was going to be like, but this completely took that idea and went with it. It was way more dark and gothic, and I compare this a lot to Bram Stoker's Dracula. It was so much more like Dracula than I expected. And honestly, I have so many thoughts on it, but to summarize all of them is I'm really excited because this art direction, the style, is something I really enjoy. And, to see that they're doing this and they're going with it, I think they're going to have, they call them beastmen. They're not werewolves, but I think they're going to have very reasonable explanations for them. I don't think it's going to be supernatural. It's going to be that idea in a world of Resident Evil. But the fact that, they have this village and it looks so dark and gothic, and, I'm just super excited for it. It's an interesting direction. And again, I like the style. That's why we're doing a lot of that similar style with Vigil. And so when we seen it, we're like, this is awesome. Wait, a lot of this reminds us of what we're doing with Vigil. Oh crap. But yeah, I'm excited.
What did you feel when you saw this large boy, Chris Redfield,
big boys,
standing over, apologizing, and then committing an absolutely dastardly act?
Well, in the rumors we heard that he was gonna, I can't remember, there's so many rumors, he was gonna shoot Ethan, but then he shot Mia. And when I seen him, my immediate thought was, holy shit, Chris looks like Chris again. I'm so happy Chris looks like old man Chris. And then there's a lot of memes out there that he's become the boulder and stuff like that. I didn't really think he looked that thick. I just seen his face and I was like, that's the Chris I know. That's my Chris everybody remembers from Resident Evil 7, not my Chris, or not my Redfield. But that's my Redfield. But then when he just blasts me in the face, like, that was brutal. That was so brutal and so out of character for Chris that I like, regardless if he's doing the right thing or not, it's just not something you would see Chris do. Which makes me wonder if maybe this is a looking back at what happened, but maybe that's not what actually happened. Or I don't know, but I do know
Mandela effect, maybe.
Yeah.
What's going to happen is this Redfield is not the real Redfield. Resident Evil 7's Chris is going to come back, and he's going to be the real Redfield.
Do you guys like him now? He's got no. You can't push that Redfield on me. Stop it. What I want to see now is like, okay, modders take this model and put him in 7. It wasn't a huge deal, but it would have been a lot nicer to have the Chris that we're familiar with from 5 and 6 and 7. But
that's gonna be a real interesting thing with the capabilities of the RE engine, and now we're in this area where we're going into next generation. I almost half think that Capcom is probably going to, I won't say remaster, obviously, because I feel like that's a little too new to say that, but I really feel like we're probably going to see upscaled versions of 7, 2, and 3 come to the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox One X. And that I think that would be something to see if we do get these, upscaled ports, if, Capcom has to kind of like backtrack a little bit and say, oh, hey, by the way, you want to buy Resident Evil 7 on the PS5 because, new updated Chris.
Yeah. I don't know if I see them actually. I would love it, but I don't see them replacing the model. But to upscale 2 and 3 for next gen, that's that's got to be a given. It came out right at the end of the console generation, and the fact that Capcom's a business and needs to make money, it would make sense that they would port that over to the next gen.
And we know that the RE engine is stupid versatile. I mean, you've seen gameplay on the GPD win. You've seen it literally. It can run on a literal potato. Resident Evil 7, stupidly optimized game. So yeah, I'd love to see her. I mean, Capcom are going to do it. They've brought out Resident Evil 4 to absolutely everything. It's not going to surprise me.
The thing that does surprise me is if this game is only on next gen. Now, I know in all the videos it's only shown PS5 and the new Xbox and Steam, and it has no mention of past gen. But, and if the company is going for a game that has no loading screens and they want to give you the best experience possible, then I give them respect for that. But if you think about it, from a company standpoint, all the money you'd be losing out on, it doesn't make sense that they wouldn't sacrifice some of the capabilities of the game to get it in more people's hands. I don't know.
Well, I talked about this the other day with somebody, 7, for example. I know 7 has load times.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily remember 7 load times. I don't really think of Resident Evil 2 and 3 when it comes to load times. I get these cutscenes. There's a couple little things. So that argument, that they're oh, well, or when people are oh, well, yeah, it's only going to be next gen because Capcom wants to get rid of the load times.
Yeah.
In the current trend, I'm yeah, I played 7, the entire, the other night I sat through and played the entire game again.
Yeah.
And I can't think of one load moment. The game just seems seamless to me. So I don't think that it's not something the RE engine can't already accomplish, or at least with older generations you can mask it well. Obviously, I know that the no load times is kind of a specific thing to next gen consoles, but the RE engine is capable of faking no load times rather well in current hardware. So and again, we know from the beta tests, all the reporting, we did, you guys over at Roe did, Rely on Horror, all of the information that we received during those beta test periods, all of it was done on PS4 Pros, from what we understand. It was only done on current gen hardware.
Yeah.
So it seems like they've got a pretty decent build, already made for current gen for testing. It seems like a shame to waste all of that.
Yeah, it does. And what I think is they want to drop it with the new consoles, right? But I think that they shifted focus onto this, so it's finished. It's almost finished for next gen consoles. And if they have enough time, I think they'll make it readily available, but they're not going to announce current gen until it's for sure readily available. But they really want to push the next gen system. So right now they're only putting on their PS5 and the new Xbox so that people go out and buy them. And then they'll maybe at some point just be oh yeah, it's actually coming out to both. Fake people out, shady business stuff. But yeah, so I'm super excited for the game. I like the art direction. I'm interested to see how they're going to explain it. I personally thought Ethan didn't have a lot of personality, but obviously that's what they were going for with the first person. They wanted you to be the character, so they don't want to give him a ton of personality. But, for the Resident Evil series as a whole, it's known for having these very iconic characters with a lot of personality. So it was a shift, and I can see why a lot of people aren't big fans of Ethan. But, here with Chris murdering Mia and them having a kid together, I'm actually kind of interested to see now, what story and direction they're going to take with these characters. And I believe it's been said that at the beginning of the trailer, when it says it's the end of his story, everybody was worried that it was the end of Chris's story. But I believe Capcom said it's the end of the Resident Evil 7 story. So it's instead of doing a trilogy, I think they're only going to do a 2-part to this one. I don't know.
Which is kind of odd, because it seems like Capcom always has gone on these arcs of not necessarily a true trilogy. We're not talking Star Wars 1 through 3 or, but Capcom seems to go on these arcs where they have these trilogy release games. So it is interesting to hear Capcom, say that this probably isn't going to be 7 through 9. This is just going to be 7 and 8.
Yeah, that is interesting. I wonder if they want to take a completely different direction with 9. It's so far out that I don't know, but I'm sure they're working on good chance they're working on the remake, and they're probably working on other games too. So it'll be a long time before we even get hints at what that could be.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I just, like I said, like there's just like Capcom has done really well with arcs in the past. Like 1 through 3 is kind of the Raccoon City arc, obviously, and then 4 through 6, I would consider maybe it's an arc. I don't. I don't.
In
I
some
don't.
way.
It's weird though because 4 feels like it's its own standalone game. Like,
so
it's not really part of any other. It ties in with the story, but as far as the game goes, it's its own thing.
But really, does it really tie in? I mean,
for me,
Resident Evil 4, it's just like at the start they just want to completely retcon fucking Umbrella and just go, right, Umbrella's finished, right, move on.
Yeah, I feel like we got robbed a little bit, not actually getting to take down Umbrella, but getting a cutscene for it. But they might tie it in now because there was during that discussion they said they wanted to tie in the Nemesis parasite with the Las Plagas parasite, and so
that's an awkward thing too. And I know I know companies show their hand all the time, but this was like just like an obvious like, why'd you do that, Capcom? Like unless it's just like obvious, like an obvious troll from Capcom. But
maybe they do that sometimes.
They've done that too. But it's just so weird that they went out of their way to be like, oh yeah, by the way, Las Plagas and the Nemesis parasite are definitely connected. Like,
yeah, that's why a lot of people are a little upset that they're tampering with the lore. But personally, like I'm very thankful and I enjoy that we're getting new remakes and retellings of Resident Evil games. But personally, for me, the original lore will always be my go-to. And I'm not a huge lore guy. Like I appreciate the lore behind Resident Evil, but I can separate the two, and I don't have one. Like I know that there's not one canon. It's whatever one you want to decide is your kind of lore for the series, and the original lore is kind of my definitive. But so it doesn't really bother me too much, but I know it has upset some people that they're changing that stuff up.
Yeah, and I totally get it, but at the same time, like some of the changes they're making to me, like, and maybe it's just because I've obviously doing the whole Resident Evil content creation thing, like I just have become so well versed in lore. Like some of it just makes sense to me. It's like these are things I could have like I always had this kind of head canon. So it's kind of nice to actually just see Capcom say like, yes, that's right.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I get that too. But I mean, then another thing though is like I love the SD Perry books, and they're not part of the series, so that's like its own separate canon. There's so many canons, so confusing. The Resident Evil series is actually really confusing if you really try to get into all the lore. It gets very complicated. Yeah.
Oh yeah, even ignoring like the side lores and stuff, just like the main actual lore of Resident Evil is all over the place.
It really is. So I kind of stay away from that type of content. It creates too much arguments, I guess you could say. I just like the games for what they are. I don't want to stir, the pot.
But yeah, because you can always drop something that just completely destroys any lore argument. Like
I do like doing theories though. That's always fun.
Something I'd love to kind of throw a curveball question at you.
Sure.
It goes without saying, and your head is going to go. It goes without saying at this point that you are the largest turnkey Resident Evil page in content creation. I know there are big like pages down in Brazil and stuff like that, but in terms of video content and what you produce, you're the biggest Resident Evil content creation platform. My question to you is, who else do you watch?
Okay. So, well, thank you for one, to just start doing content because that's what I like doing. And the fact that you say we're the biggest for Resident Evil YouTube, when you say that to me, it doesn't make sense. I don't believe it because like, how is that possible? But, for me personally, I've always watched Resident Evil content. Like that's my favorite thing to do. So I watch so much now. Time is limited, but I'm still listening to all the podcasts. And it's weird because once I started the Resident Evil world and community online really opened up to me. I had no idea it was as large as it is, and I didn't know there was as much content as there is. And so, like, if you wanted me to go through a list of all the content creators that I watch, I'm going to forget some. But man, okay, so podcasts. I started with Let's Talk Resident Evil. I was on their show a few times before I started the YouTube channel. great guys over there, and I really enjoy their content. Crimson Head always killed it with interviews. Big fan of their content. You guys are now killing it with podcasts. They're listening to these again. They're great. Project Umbrella. Who else do we got here? First Aid Spray just started doing a podcast. I love podcasts because I work a full-time job, and a lot of that job is typing or doing things at the computer. So I like to listen to podcasts to get me through the day. As far as videos, before I was doing the role, I watched I watched Where's Barry. Where's Barry had good news and good theories. I enjoyed that a lot. He had good quality content. Since then there's a lot more now, like Ink Ribbon, Susie the Sphere Hunter, Scorpion. Oh man, I could just ramble and ramble and ramble. But I love everybody's content, and I'm one of those that I'm doing content, so I just focus on our content. No, I watch everybody's. I love the community, and and the content the community makes. As I always say, whenever somebody wants to start a Resident Evil channel, or they feel inspired to do a podcast or something, do it. I think the more content we have for the community, the better. It doesn't matter if they're different channels are talking about the same thing. I love hearing different perspectives. I love hearing different takes on things. And I'm one of those that could never have enough content. So yeah, start your channels, make your content, let me know.
Oh, indeed. And we've been very, obviously goes without saying, we've been very blessed with the little community, a smidgen community, of course, in the grand scheme of things that we've put together here. But that's one of the big reasons why we wanted to kind of bring this podcast platform back, is just to bring all creators together. Really, everyone's got a unique perspective, especially around Resident Evil coming out in the late 90s. Us millennials, coming out back then, we have a lot of memories that we associate with Resident Evil. Dreamcast guy had a really interesting one. We've had Avalanche reviews on. Everyone's got such a unique story around Resident Evil. So it's it's priceless. It's priceless information.
Yes. It's weird how everybody has their own unique story, but so many stories are very similar. How we fell in love with the series, it was usually from an older cousin or a father or a mother playing the games, and us being kids watching them, and it's the stories are echoed a lot. But I love hearing the stories of how people fell in love with the series, because I can relate. It's fun to talk about. It's fun to hear that kind of stuff. And you guys I don't know, what did you refer to yourself as, having a little foot in the Resident Evil world? You guys are killing it. You guys are doing a great job. You're covering podcasts. You guys got video content. You're really doing a fantastic job for the community. So yeah, I think you guys don't have a small foot, but you guys are, you're there. You're doing a great job.
Well, yeah, now we got the whole,
I got to do it back, right?
No,
Yeah.
It goes without saying, that's really appreciated. And, we're all singing on the same hymn sheet here. We're fighting on the same battlefield. So, no, it's great, honestly. And for us too, speaking with other content creators in our field, just it means a lot. It means a lot you coming on today.
Yeah. I'm glad you guys are doing that with other content creators, because, I don't think that anybody else has to, everybody interviews the voice actors and developers, but nobody's interviewing or talking with, or even just casually chatting about Resident Evil with other creators right now. You guys are doing that. So that's I find that really interesting.
We're going full Dr. Phil. We're like, well, who is
Well, yeah, but it all goes back to being able to show Capcom that the community out here is strong. Obviously, at the end of the day, Capcom doesn't give a damn. If we're at war with Roe, and Roe's at war with Ink Ribbon, and Ink Ribbon's at war with Crimson Head. Yeah, obviously Capcom doesn't care about any of that. But
no.
I think there is, obviously Capcom does take note, though, when they see all these content creators, coming together, talking about the same things. And I think that's a really important, role to kind of fill within the community, to show the powers that be at Capcom that hey, this isn't just one person's opinion or another person's opinion. We as kind of the I don't want to say heads of the community because I feel like that's a little disingenuous, but it's kind of like at least having our platforms to vocalize what we hear from our independent communities.
Yeah.
Showing that united front, like, hey, it kind of helps. I feel like kind of gives us an edge to hold Capcom accountable, to the fans and stuff. So I think that's really important, and I really wish we saw a lot more of the different content creators coming together and doing stuff like this.
For sure. What you're saying makes a lot of sense. And I feel like having the channels and platforms we do, it is our responsibility to be a voice for the fans. Because I remember before I had a channel, I wanted to do whatever I could to let my voice be heard about Resident Evil 2 remake. And now that the channel's grown to this point, we want to be a beacon and a voice to Capcom. And not only that, but I think it's for new people coming into the community, people that are falling in love with Resident Evil now with the new games, like to see that there is content and those content creators get along and work together is much more welcoming than seeing drama and unnecessary, animosities between channels. Like, so the fact that we're working together just builds the community and makes us stronger as a whole.
Yeah, because I remember the old the old dial-up days of the Resident Evil community online, and everybody hated each other. Like,
did they? I didn't go into the community, but
at least from what I remember, like, it just seemed like anybody who was obviously the content mediums were a little bit different back then, but
yeah,
it just seemed like nobody, and even to an extent, that's why 1.5 took forever to get so long to get to where it was. It's just because everybody hated each other. Nobody wanted to work with each other to get it done.
This is really weird, Jesse. But
yeah, Andy's over there
saying that. I've just pulled up a video of Resident Evil 1.5, which I was just about to talk about.
Oh, let's watch it. It's a roll.
We haven't. Yeah, we're just on the fly, baby. This
all right, let's do it. And I find this game so fascinating, so incredibly fascinating, because it's my favorite game of all time in a completely different direction. It's like, what could have been,
Yeah, sorry to cut you off there, Jesse, but
no.
Yeah, as you were, my friend.
Yeah, no, it's just like I said, it's just I'm excited to see the community starting to come together, and we've always had the mindset of we'll work with anybody. If you want to come talk with us, we're always up for a conversation. We never
for sure. That's how you and I started talking, is like, hey, let's work on some content together.
Yeah, and and that was the thing. I reached out to a lot of people, and some obviously, like, I'm not going to say that I'm any hostility or towards me or towards anybody else, but I get like everybody's got their own things going on, but reaching out with you, and I think we hit it off rather well, and yeah. We've got a lot of similar audiences, and there's a lot of mediums that there's a lot of crossover between what we do here at BHD and what you guys do over at the Row.
For sure.
So yeah, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's what I want to see more of in the RE, and at least in the community side of things. Because
there's one thing I want to do. It was an idea I had. Is we have for charity, we do Resident Evil Outbreak PvP with all the big content creators. And everybody that loses has to delete their channel, and the only winner is the last one standing, can be the only one to have a Resident Evil channel. So everybody is in it, and it's just it's as a joke. But a really cool thing for charity would be to bring all the channels together to do some Outbreak.
Agreed. It's a good thing we're not a big Resident Evil content creator, because we would just go straight underneath that, right, Jesse?
No, you guys would be in it. I know we'd be out right away. Rose deleted. Goodbye, everybody. Thanks for all your support. But yeah, that would be fun. There's a lot of cool things that we could do if we all come together and interviews, collabs, all different things. So it's for the greater good of the community.
And I would. And Ingram has discussed this with me before about the Resident Evil multiplayer. Rose got a seat at that table.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
All right,
we'll make it happen. I mean, obviously, it works for us because we're over on Facebook. We'll do some absolutely mental live stream where everyone's involved. I think that'd be really ambitious.
Yeah.
Because I think Kai's on the he's on Pacific time. Obviously, I'm in the UK and you're in
US. Michigan.
Michigan,
Yeah, upper Michigan.
So yeah, that'll be an absolute logistical headache, but I'm sure we can. Sure we can make it happen.
I'm up weird hours. Yeah. So what is going on then with this Resident Evil multiplayer?
Well, I was just thinking, you know, bringing everybody on board. We're talking a lot about collaboration and just having a big Resident Evil Outbreak stream, because I feel, again, just you, that Outbreak is completely untapped, really. And even if Capcom just port it as a PS2 classic with multiplayer support,
yeah,
I'd be 100%. Happy with that. I don't even need to remaster it at this point.
Yeah, for real. You know, it's if they remade it and went the style of Resident Evil 2 remake, it would be really interesting and it would do really well because, you know, multiplayer is much more easier to do now than it was on the PS2 days. But if they just took the same game and, like you said, didn't even do anything graphically, but just gave it online support, I think it would finally have its time to shine. It came out at a weird time. It was ahead of its time. But that game is absolutely fantastic. It's the classic Resident Evil experience with friends, and it's so much fun.
Agreed.
Yeah.
We did speak briefly about Resident Evil 1.5, and I know you're very, very big into the lore, and I'd love to know your opinions on it. So, Resident Evil 1.5.
Okay, so I did this video a long time ago during the start of the channel. I said, was it better than Resident Evil 2? And I think right away at the beginning of the video, I was like, well, hell no, Resident Evil 2 is a masterpiece. But it did have some interesting things in it that Resident Evil 2 didn't. And, you know, Resident Evil 1.5, they had a damage system. So as a player gets hurt, you would start to see damage on their body. They had... you know, different things that, you know, different gear that if you wear it, you can see it on the character. Leon just slicked his hair back there, but you can see the weapon pouch there. They had different enemies. They had these Spider-Men that were just absolutely terrifying. It was like half man, half spider. They had gorillas. So, you know, but the police station as a whole was a much more modern, realistic looking police station, and that's where, you know, I appreciate the Resident Evil 2 we got, is because it had such a unique gothic style architecture to it that really made it stand out. But, you know, having Elza Walker, and it still would be interesting. It's one of those things where I would not have preferred 1.5 over 2, but I would still like it to be released in whatever state it's in so that people can enjoy it separately and see what could have been.
Is there an 80% build out there?
There's, oh God, I think this one you're watching is a 40% build, but I think they've come a long way since then. And that's another video I'm going to be doing that I have planned, is to revisit that now with all the updates. As you can see in that part there, that was Kendo, and I think his name was John, if I'm not mistaken, and he'd be an NPC that was with the character in the game. But, you know, it was cool to see, too, these characters and how they were going to be in the game rather than what we've seen. Yeah, and it's cool to just see all these different sort of backgrounds and stuff that, you know, you're so used to one thing and you're like, oh, all these pre-rendered backgrounds that are something completely new. With the same graphics. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's one of those things that, you know, it's familiar but completely different.
Yeah,
it is, but it is actually really bizarre going back. What? And again, I watched Wang's video on this, who did an absolutely fantastic.
He did.
Like synopsis of the whole lore behind Resident Evil 1.5. But what there must be, similar to like Paul Haddad, there must be a like voice, because I remember seeing clips like the original 1.5, not this kind of Team iGas build of 1.5.
Yeah.
But I remembered seeing like hearing voice actors in the game. Somebody somewhere must have done lines for Resident Evil 1.5 that should be able to like at least fill us in with with what was going on and how far it really did get before it was ultimately shit canned.
Well, I remember when we were talking with Paul, he said that he had recorded some lines, and he said one in I can't remember offhand what it was, but it was something about him being at the police station getting ready or something like that. And then if you read back to what Resident Evil 1.5 is going to have, you were going to get changed once you get to the police station, similar to what you've seen in the Resident Evil 2 remake. And that line he said is like, hey, that might have been a 1.5 line. And he said, yeah, there were some things he recorded that were cut. So I think they did do some voices. You know, those podcasts were a while ago, so I have to go back and listen. But I'm almost positive they did some voices for the game, and just they were never used.
And that's it. And that's an interesting point as well, that Resident Evil 2 Remake takes so many like little hints from 1.5 even having Elsa Walker's costume in the game, obviously.
Yeah.
Aside from that, but as you said, the kind of getting dressed at the police station on scenario scenario A and scenario B, that's a throwback.
Yep.
Yeah, just so many, and maybe that was what they were going for as well. They obviously identified some elements that were in 1.5 which they didn't get to do in Resident Evil 2. Maybe that carried through.
Some of the concept art and stuff from the earlier time when they were working on 1.5 was also incorporated. You could see Mr. X with the trench coat and the fedora. So yeah, it was a lot of really interesting ideas, and they did grab some. And throwing that Elsa Walker costume in Resident Evil 2 remake, that's absolute fan service. Like, I was really appreciative that they done that. Yeah, it was just one of those things. When it comes to alphas, betas, and fan games, that's like my favorite thing to do on the channel. I'm just fascinated by what Resident Evil could have been, different directions, and what the community's doing. There's a lot of talent out there, and projects like Mortal Night, Destiny, and now the upcoming what's that? That one I just During the Storm. Yes, that one looks absolutely fantastic. That's going to basically be like a Resident Evil 2 version of Outbreak, full story. Like, it's just so cool because to me personally, those classic games, no matter how dated they get, they're never dated to me. They're a lot of fun. And personally, I would just love to go back and just have different stories within that timeline. They can look and play exactly the same. And so that's kind of what these fan games give us, is they let us go back and play the original games with a fresh new take and a different story. Yeah, During the Storm. This looks absolutely fantastic.
So speaking of fan games, because I've been, I've got a collection of like 50, 60 of them now on my PC. I've been going through and playing all, and I came across one, and I actually had to go back and use one of your videos for reference.
Oh, really?
Well, yeah, because it's Resident Evil Crossfire.
Oh, yeah, that was a cool one.
Let me see if I can splice that in. Hang on.
I downloaded it, I think, off Game Jolt. I got to playing it, and there's the part with the paintings on the wall puzzle where you have to like put them in a certain color order. Yeah. And I, for the life of me, couldn't, like, I kind of knew what to do with it, but I still couldn't exactly figure it out.
Yeah.
So I typed in, Resident Evil Crossfire painting puzzle, and your video was the first thing that came up. I was like, oh, well, thank God JJ's played it before. Sucks
that it had to be him. I never said I was a good Resident Evil player. I love the series, but I'm not the best, so I'm glad I could help you out. But yeah, not usually good for walkthroughs. I struggle too. But this was a throwback.
Portrait back. He needs to bring his portrait.
Yeah,
back.
Dude, that's when I had 1,400 subs. That was like at the beginning of the channel.
Oh wow! Oh gosh, I didn't realize that when I was watching this, I didn't realize that it was that old of a video.
Yeah, this is one of the first ones I did. This game was really cool though, very ambitious, and it surprisingly played really well. That's the thing with these fan games too, is like bugs and some of those cheesy things happen, but that's to be expected. That's part of the charm of these fan games. It's just to see the passion people put in. If they're a little broken, that's to be expected.
Yeah, like obviously, like I have a deep appreciation for games like Mortal Night and the 1.5 mod. But I will say Crossfire is probably one of the best, like, unique Resident Evil fan games I think I've ever played. Yeah, like, it was solid. It felt like a real, like, you could tell like the assets were stolen from damn near every damn near everywhere.
A fan game.
Yeah, it's all fine,
Yeah.
But it just played so well, and I was like, I would love to have seen this whole story play out.
For sure, definitely.
But what out of all of I know you've done a lot of the fan games out there. What's some of the highlights in your opinion in the community? Obviously, don't want to hurt anybody's feelings or anything, but there obviously are some games that just have like bigger standout moments than others.
Yeah, for sure. And they're all good in their own way, and I respect that the creators of them. There is some that stood out just for the fact that either they were complete and well made, or they were fun experiences. And I think some of my highlights would be before the Resident Evil 2 remake came out, to experience the RPD main hall in VR by Crying Horn. And then getting to get up close and personal with the liquor. Everybody remembers that I scooped down and squeezed its butt cheek. But that one was awesome, dude. To have that liquor in my face was such a phenomenal experience. And VR is so immersive. Another one, Mortal Night, is a huge project. And I had a lot of fun playing that one. That one's 3 parts, and it's really well put together. And it completely, has its own items and story and characters, and that was really cool. But I think my favorite out of all of them, just because it made its own custom backgrounds and its own story, its own characters, but still tied into Resident Evil, was Resident Evil 2 Destiny. That one was extremely impressive, and it was a good, you can beat it now in 15-20 minutes, but when you first played it's about an hour and some. It was like a perfect chunk to just, a whole new experience within that world. And I absolutely love Resident Evil 2 Destiny.
Yeah, and Destiny like always does like stupidly well, like within our community. Every time Andy's has streamed it, like because it's such a unique experience.
Yeah,
like, it is so unique,
and you can speed run it and get good at it, and it works really well. It's
totally Resident Evil. It is totally Resident Evil.
It's totally Resident Evil. But with and then probably one of the most ambitious, best made ones I played recently was Resident Evil Remix by Mr. Curious. That was one of the recent fan game videos I've done, and that one got a lot of interest from the community because it basically takes the gameplay style of Resident Evil 4, but it remakes the Spencer Mansion and Resident Evil 1 portion in it. So it's like you're playing Resident Evil 1, but with Resident Evil 4's game style. But the cool thing with Resident Evil Remix is that the first part is like Resident Evil 1, but then the game actually remixes and you get areas from other games, new areas. Like, so this, what you see here is Resident Evil 1 and 4, but it takes a different direction after this. And I'm working with him now on doing part 2. So that gets really cool. I played a little bit of it, and it's really well done.
So you've got an interesting, obviously you've got quite an interesting story with that, because you're the only person that this chap allowed access to play.
Yes.
And I know you did have, not controversy would be an overblown way of saying it, but he's very particular on what he wanted you to show and what he didn't want you to show. So
yes.
Go into detail a little bit on that.
And I respect that,
of course, goes without saying.
He's, and a lot of creators I've met and discussed, they're perfectionists. They put a lot of work and time into their art and their design. They want it to be showed properly, and Moonglint is exactly the same way. Working with him on Vigil, he's very particular. And so with Mr. Curious, I had recorded a part 2, but unfortunately it's still a work in progress, and there was some minor bugs and some things that didn't load properly. And he's, and I've talked with him, and I told him that, I appreciate and respect that, you want me to showcase your game. I'm going to do it right. And so I had recorded the video. I had it all edited. I thought it was great. And I sent it over, and he's like, there's a couple things in here I don't want. And I was like, as much as I thought the video was fine, as like, I respect that you want your, he's spent so much time on it. I was like, let's just redo it. We'll get together and we'll do it right. We'll fix the bugs. And so, he wants his fan game to be good. You can't be mad at that. That's awesome. Yeah. So that was what that was.
Yeah. And it's such a good looking project too. Like I am excited to see more of this come out.
For sure. Yeah. And it's one too, like, because he received a lot of feedback on the first one, and there are some things that he wanted to address that I guess I can address here real quick. But with Resident Evil Remix, you will need a legit copy of Resident Evil 4 to play it. It is a modification. So he's not making any profit off it. This is just because he likes to do it, just like we're doing with Vigil. What else did he say? You have to have a legit copy. He hopes to have it out sometime towards the end of the year, I believe. And it's still a work in progress. So some things you see in the video might change, but you just want to be adamant on that because a lot of people say, C&D and all that. And he's putting it out for free as a free mod for the game that you have to purchase. So everything's good there.
Yeah, that was I was amazed at the amount of people that went straight to the whole C&D argument, because I didn't get.
It's not unfounded. It does happen, and
it's
in it.
There's a lot of misconception behind that, though, I believe. And it all kind of stems back to Invader Games at the time, now Invader Studios, with their Resident Evil 2 remake. Now, I believe, and it's been a long time, but I believe they were charging for it or something.
Right.
Even if they weren't, Capcom was planning an official. And so you can't have a fan project that's going back to, that's garnering attention when you're actually doing it. You know what I mean? And so they had them shut it down, but they invited them out. They were really respectful. They invited the team out. They got to meet, with, the developers behind Resident Evil 7, and they got to discuss Resident Evil 2. And then eventually they made their own game. In other cases, there's been hundreds of fan games that have been completely fine. If people aren't.
Yeah, even like 1.5, there was a huge controversy. I think it was back in 2013, 2014, where part of the 1.5 team like split off and was trying to sell copies of it.
Oh yeah.
That was a huge controversy. And I mean, they could have got into that C&D territory, and they thankfully didn't. But that's the whole thing. It's like these fan games, like as long as you're not selling, like I feel like Capcom's very generous with our community.
They allow a lot, and it's just when what your project is affecting what they're working on, are you profiting off of copyrighted assets? That's when they step in. But for the most part, unheard of.
Because I dread the day that Capcom gets bought out by Disney, because then we're all out. We're all out of jobs.
They're coming after everybody.
That's a fantastic point, actually, because I'm looking at your hat right now. Let me just blow this up.
Oh yeah,
I'm looking at your hat right now.
Yeah,
and I would, and we're talking about, and again, I don't want to say this out of turn. I don't want to be rude.
No,
but we all take liberties with the Resident Evil license, and you have been allowed to use the Richard, the box art guy.
Yeah. So
all of your material, I'd love to know how you get away with that.
So originally,
respectfully, of course,
we had put it in, not thinking, because we never expected the channel to get where it got. We did some editing to it, made it black and white, and since then we've done a lot more editing to make it more of a clip art. But there's a few reasons why it was okay. Number one, when we released Vigil, we had a logo of it on there, and that's when a lot of these things, like Vigil's going to get C&D, and at the time it was Roe the game. We didn't have a name for it. And a lot of the assets we were using was because it was supposed to be like a Resident Evil parody game, and we were just starting development, but we never planned to have any copyright assets. So like since then, everything has shifted over to completely original, uncopyrighted material with a completely different story aside from Resident Evil. But with that, our logo was in there, and they're like, well, your logo is using the guy, but we are the Residents of Evil, but we're technically the ROENETWORK. So we have a ROENETWORK logo that is completely original, has nothing to do with this. But we sell our merch through Costwares. And Costwares was in contact with Capcom, and they've asked Capcom, is this merch okay? And I don't know if it's because it's so old or what, but it's completely fine to use this. And like I said, we've altered it so much that it's kind of, it's fine. It's fair game at this point. And I don't want people to, it's old, so I can take it and use it. No, we just got lucky to have our merch distributor have contact with Capcom, and to be told that it's okay. So I can't guarantee that for everybody.
Yeah, because obviously last thing we want is an esteemed Resident Evil YouTube creator colleague be C&D for something. But that's a really interesting story that somebody has on your behalf reached out to Capcom and just they've in a way given it their blessing. Because I mean, as we went into earlier, they've got to be somewhat grateful for your presence on YouTube.
Yeah, I don't know personally if the heads of Capcom are grateful, but I do know that some of the developers and stuff enjoy our content, and the people that are working on the Resident Evil games, they're either passionate fans or they're just people too, and they like to see what's going on in the community, and they're very involved. And the fact that I know that there's people that enjoy the row at Capcom is a really cool thing to think about. Is they're working on the games that I love, the series that I love, and they're also enjoying the content you're making. So it's really cool.
Has anybody, if you don't mind me asking, you don't have to dox anyone, of course,
no.
But has anybody reached out to you from Capcom, being the size of creator that you are?
We're okay. So Capcom doesn't do a lot of collaborations, and I think for that is they like to protect their brand, and they like to protect their views are their views, and they don't want to have other people's views be affiliated with the company. So they're very protective on, doing cross podcasts. And because, there's a lot of people like Crimson Head, us, that do interviews with voice actors. And you would think, well, Capcom would share that. Well, it's complicated because if somebody says something in a podcast that you don't want to affiliate with your company, so they can't be that in depth. But we have had contact with they're now sending us when a new game's coming out, they'll send us a copy. Like we got Resident Evil 3, and I think it started with Resident Evil 0, 1, and 4 on the Switch. But we have that affiliation. I do know some other people that work at Capcom that if there's ever an idea for collaboration or something, we would be honored to work with them. we're trying, but it's tricky. It's tricky. Yeah. They know we're here. But what they can actually do with people is complicated. What about you guys?
No.
No.
To be fair, we've only really been we've been doing this gig for just over a year now. So
yeah,
we're pups in the grand scheme of things. But
I'm always here to help out if you guys want to know where because they sent us Resident Evil 3. Like I said, if you guys want to know who that rep is, I can put you in contact with them.
That'd be appreciated.
Yeah, for sure.
Because that's one thing that we were shocked at when Resident Evil 3 dropped, is that nobody was it seemed like big Twitch streamers got access to Resident Evil 3 like the day before. So obviously when the content, like the Resident Evil content creators come to it, we was kind of like second in the race. So it was like
I think they're definitely getting way better than they were when we started. When we started, there was no bridge to Capcom, and now I've noticed a lot of new channels are starting to get access, including us. And I should point out that they did send us the game, but I'm still a huge fan. I bought the collector's edition, with my own money and stuff like that. I still want to support, what they're doing, but they've gotten a lot better, and they do different tier levels of how they distribute. So I know some creators that got theirs a month in advance. We didn't get ours until I think a day or two in advance. And I read a part wrong, and what it said was streamers can stream, I believe, up to a day early, but Let's Plays have to come out a day later. So if I would have known that, I would have took work off and streamed the game a day early. But I read it wrong, and I thought streaming and the game have to come out on the same day. And so we recorded a Let's Play instead. And instead of being early to the party, we actually ended up being late, and everybody had their stuff out before us. And I was like, I took work off, and we played all this and edited it in one night. And I could have just took work off and played it live. That would have been way cooler. So my bad.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Go on, Jess.
That was, I don't know. I still had mixed feelings about that with the whole streamers got to go up to 24 hours early, because I get it, but I watched a lot of those streams, and nobody did Resident Evil 3 any favors.
No,
was
a thing with them when they send out copies is they don't tell you what to say. Like, they let you have your own opinion, which I appreciate. So that's probably why people were a little harder on the game, is because they were judging it fairly. Nobody's paying them to say anything. They don't do that.
Yeah, no, and I know, and I am glad that we got candid opinions and stuff, but I feel like, and not to say obviously I'm not saying that people in the speedrun community aren't real Resident Evil fans or whatever, but I feel like they speedrunners, that's kind of a particular sub niche of our niche. There's a formula of a speedrunner wants in a game that somebody like myself, who's more of a casual gamer, doesn't mind. I feel like there's a slight difference in what we enjoy in the game,
and I'm exactly the same way as you.
I think that's what the kind of part that and I feel like that's kind of what a lot of my issue with it was, is you had all these speedrunners going oh yeah, this game, this game's not going to last a month because I can't I can speedrun it so easily, or whatever, because that was literally what all the speedrunners said was oh yeah, this game's going to die in a month because it's either too easy to speedrun or whatever. And I felt like that was a huge turnoff to some of the casual people who just watch speedruns for just for the content, and they're oh well, it's that bad, I don't know if I want to buy it now, when I think is on a casual level, just the average casual gamer would have seen no issue, like a speedrunner, or maybe somebody that's a little bit more in depth like ourselves as overall content creators. So like I said, I appreciate Capcom lets these people talk uncensored, but at the same time, I feel like they targeted the wrong community to give the game to first.
Which they may have. And it's complicated because when you give it out to streamers, it just so happens that a large portion of the community, the live community for Resident Evil, are speedrunners, because that is such an integral part of the series, has always been speedrunning. Now, I'm just like you. I'm not competitive. I'm not trying to get the best speed. I just enjoy the experience. I'm very casual. But the thing is, and I've since learned that the streaming community is massive. So if Capcom was to say, hey, I'm going to give it to the content creators over the streamers, it's a tough decision, because you'd then be, you how do I want to put it? They released it to every streamer 24 hours early. It might not have been exactly 24, but I know it was a lot earlier than content creators. But like, reviews could have come out earlier too. So reviews were actually allowed to come out first. It was reviews, then streams, then Let's Plays. But it's just so hard to segregate, I guess, the game to people that are casual players and the people that are speedrunners. And it just so happens that the speedrunners are a big part of the community. And with that, maybe their criticisms were warranted in a sense, because so many people like speedrunning with Resident Evil. Maybe the fact that they say this is not a good speedrunning game, maybe that's something they should point out. You know what I mean? Yeah. I know we wouldn't have been as hard on it because we play casually, but they're part of the community too, and they have a big
I'm not gonna deny. And I watch, if I'm looking for something just to have some background noise, I'll throw like Bach or somebody, Albert FN, I'll throw any of those guys on. It's just some like casual background noise, because with speedrunning, like, it's more about just watching than listening. Like with casual like gameplays, there's a lot more listening,
interaction.
Interaction with the creator, whereas a speed run, I can just glance up and like, oh god, it's been like because that's all I can do, like watching a speed run is like, the guy's 5 minutes in and like 2/4 or halfway through the game, and I'm like, wow, like 5 minutes, I've barely like made it past,
I quit. I got really into watching speed runs. They're so much fun to watch. I just personally, it's not for me. I'm not good enough, but they're fun.
That's a good point, actually. And to play devil's advocate on that, I would have actually, looking back in hindsight, the delicious thing that it is, I would have liked to have done it how you did it, because I feel like streaming the game, because I streamed it day one, I got up at 4 o'clock in the morning, UK time, to play it. Literally the second it hit my Steam, boom, let's go. Didn't have a pre-release as well, which was a little bit annoying, but that's another, you could do like a preload thing. You couldn't do that for Resident Evil 3 on PC, but you could do it on PS4. Really? And really bizarre. So I had to literally get up and download the game in full. But my point being that a lot of other regions had got the game a little bit early. Yeah, so like when I streamed it live, I had people like, "You want to save your ammo, dude?" Because that Nemesis fight that's coming up in a second, I think,
quit backseat gaming, banned.
Yeah. So I would have preferred it to do it like you, because again, you didn't have, and people aren't distractions, but some people can backseat unintentionally, and it can be like, dude, just let me enjoy the game, bro.
Yeah, it's true. It's always a learning experience. Creating content, your way of either streaming or you're always learning. So after we did our live stream of Resident Evil 2. That was fantastic. We got to enjoy the hype together with our audience. But there was a part of us that just felt so, between the two of keeping up with chat and playing the game, that we felt like we didn't get to fully focus on the game. So our idea for Resident Evil 3 was we want to play it beforehand so we get to fully focus on the game. And in hindsight, live streaming with the community was a better experience for the fact that our community has been there with us. They're interested in the things we're interested in. They're hyped for Resident Evil 3. It was so cool to experience that with our community with Resident Evil 2, that it was worth being kind of focused on the chat and the game to have that level of interaction with our community and to experience that together. So in hindsight, I think day one, when things come out now, we want to stream it with our community as opposed to doing it, pre-recording it. Always learning.
So you think you're going to do that with Village when it releases next year?
Yeah, I think that was it was, obviously we're not, well, actually with our Resident Evil 3 stream, we just played it, and when we suck, we didn't cut it out. I was going to say we're going to suck more on live, but we don't really edit our Let's Plays either. So yeah, I mean, I think that I would hope we would get that a little bit early. I think another reason to pre-record is we wanted to do a review, but there was just not enough time when we got it like a day ahead of time. But yeah, I think that it's better to enjoy that with our community for the first time. And let's just hope that the game doesn't get leaked like Resident Evil 3, because with Resident Evil 2, there was no people really playing it early, so you didn't have those people in chat spoiling it for you, whereas Resident Evil 3 was like released a week early in some areas because of COVID. They were just giving it out, so it's unfortunate that people got to watch that ahead of time. It just, that makes us appreciate the people that do enjoy your content, that wait to see your gameplay with it first before watching that early leak stuff. So yeah.
I don't know. I think I as much as I love to do it with our community, I think I need to experience Village by myself the first time, just because just to romanticize the whole months of me everybody be like, oh dude, you're just making stuff up, you can't have the werewolves in a Resident Evil game, and I'm like,
Beastmen.
The Beastmen, bro.
Beastmen.
But no, I want to enjoy some parts and be like, I knew,
I totally get and respect that. There's just taking it in by yourself that you put all your focus on it. But I guess just for me personally, I think the hype is a big part of remembering the game and your first experience. And going back now to when I was a kid, I didn't play Resident Evil 2 by myself. It was a Christmas family party, and all those kids were in the parents' room, and my cousins had just got a PlayStation, and I'm used to DOS and Super Nintendo. So I had Resident Evil 2 brand new, and we put it in. It was just, you're going to the big leagues now, and it blew our mind. But again, we were all together. It was all of us cousins together experiencing it for the first time. And I think there's a level behind that helps with, your nostalgia with it.
And I think that actually brings up a good point, because I do understand, because there are some members of the content community that won't touch some of the stuff that we will, to me, a leak of a game is not going to kill it for me. I am, like I said, I've known stuff about Village for, 6-8 months, or no, almost a year now. Jeez, time keeps going, but that doesn't kill any of the hype for me. Day one, the day Village drops, I'm going to be just as hyped in as the day that I first heard of the Beastmen.
For sure.
So, and I get that there's some people within our communities, or even just or in the content creation, or just in the communities, that don't feel that way. But I do feel like it is kind of important to experience this with the communities, because I do get how some of the magic can be lost. Especially us that do a lot of journalistic based work. You guys do a lot of, video, the same way we do a lot of articles. And I do feel we don't get to experience a day one sensation anymore. Because like I said, if a third of our leaks that we've ever received over, the past several months, or if a third of them are true, I already know 70% of the game.
Yeah.
So I don't get to have that day one, oh God, twist moment. But I think it's just the same experience, getting to see other people have that day one experience.
Yeah.
And in some ways it's almost more rewarding, to get to just the experience it as part of a community. So
really is. Yeah.
So I think that's kind of how we, how we're able to kind of cope with it a little bit, is we might not get the experience, but we get to share and react with the experience of our communities when they have their aha moments.
For sure. And there's times like that with the row, where when Resident Evil 2 came out, there was parts of the game where we're like, oh, I know what's gonna happen. I've seen this. And it wasn't leaks, it was stuff that Capcom showed. But my cousin, he's one that he just watches the first trailer and then he's out. He's like, I don't know what's gonna happen, shut up. And he got to experience that for the first time. And there was a level of that where it's maybe I knew too much. Maybe this kind of ruined a little bit of the experience, and 100% does. But it's having the channel and being in front of rumors, leaks, news, all things Resident Evil. It's just the risk you have to take, I guess. I can't just stop making content because I will let people down, people that are looking forward to seeing that on the channel. It doesn't ruin the experience, but it does hinder it a bit.
Yeah, see, that's what I was most in the Resident Evil 3 remake. I found out about how Marvin gets bit by Brad probably about 3 weeks before the game came out. 3 to 4 weeks.
I didn't. That was awesome for me. I was like,
yeah, and I was so worried after the fact because like I would joke with Andy and stuff about it, but I got to thinking about it. Like I never actually told Andy what exactly happened, but you know, but then the more I thought about it, I was like, man, I am going to be so disappointed when I actually see this scene for the first time
because you already knew about it.
Yeah, but watching Andy's I was up watching Andy's day one live stream, modding the chat and stuff, and getting to see getting to see his reaction to it, getting to see all the comments in the chat where everybody's like, what the fuck just happened,
and that's fun.
Yeah, and it saved I think that experience, because I think had I just went and played RE3 by myself, I'd be like, oh yeah, oh okay. Like I mean, it was still a cool scene, and I think I might have enjoyed it on my own, but just it was good to have like the interaction of everybody else when I knew it was coming.
Yeah, for sure. And I think now going forward with 3, I didn't know as much as I knew with 2. And that saved a lot of the experience. So regardless of how the game came out, I did have those first impression moments that truly, like help with your experience. And going forward with, how we know a lot about Resident Evil Village. And there's some things that I've actually turned off to that it's just like, I will not look any further. Like, small things like the beastmen and creatures like that, yeah, they were revealed in the trailer, so we knew about it. They were revealed in the trailer, not a big deal. But actual plot points, things that actually happen, I try to avoid those. I want that experience.
Yeah, and there's a lot of that, because obviously, like, I have to read through everything that comes through, our inbox, rumor wise. So, and that's why I was in our Discord group the other night talking about it. But there's probably, God, I don't know, like 20-30 emails of stuff that I think is probably 70% valid.
Yeah,
that people have sent us, or people that we know that have sent us accurate information in the past have sent us more. And like I said, it's probably about 70% of the game in there, and I believe about half of it's true.
So
but but it's that thing of like, there was a lot of stuff like in a more recent email we got that, like I said, obviously I don't work, obviously don't work at Capcom. I don't know how real anything is, but just my gut instinct and knowing the information the guy has, or this, where I say guy, I don't know who it is, throwaway email, but knowing this, like, reading through this information, like, I believe the majority of it's probably valid, but it's stuff I would never publish because I didn't want to read, I kind of want to be at the forefront of the, the leak community, but I didn't even want to read it in the first place because I'm like, oh, this is probably real, but I didn't actually want to know that. That's why, like, I don't mind like the playtest stuff we get, because as time's gone on, we've gotten more and more information from the the playtest that went on back last year and earlier this year. I believe that's where we got the name of the game from. Because a lot of the initial rumors we got, we've kind of chalked it up to somebody in the playtest. Obviously we can't confirm that or anything, but it just seems to be everything that was in the playtest ended up being in the trailers. So
what you're saying though, kind of on that. So all right, so going back to, like, we're saying, leaks and rumors, they kind of hinder the experience a bit. Well, regardless, before I had the channel, all that, leaks and rumors, like, when it comes to Resident Evil, I have barely any self-control. I get so hyped for that stuff. And that's the reason why we do content on that, is because I get hyped by it. I like to see that stuff, but I also have a level of, this is so early, or this is off a playtest, they're not going to reveal any big, moments. Like, I'll report on the minor stuff, the basics, but I won't get into stuff that ruins the story and stuff that's, you should experience for the first time in the game, because I don't want to be. So I have this level of hype for, small leaks and rumors, but when it gets into like actual game something that will ruin the game, I don't usually go there because I don't know.
Yeah, like I said, like, even like going back to one of our earlier articles, like the whole thing of like Chris potentially shooting either Mia or Ethan. I was always skeptical if we wanted to publish that or not,
because it could have been,
yeah. And then it was, but at the same time, I was like, well, it was like these people saw it in the play test, so it has to be important. And then Game Z, a German YouTube group, They just like flat out, like in their like report video, they just flat out had guy like cosplay as Chris and, like start shooting a gun. So I was like, okay, I don't feel so bad. And then when the trailer came out, I was like, okay, I really don't feel bad.
No, it's in the trailer. Yeah.
Because it was funny. Like one thing I always found funny was in the special developer message, Peter was talking about, like the little the fetus reef thing, for lack of better terms, that they keep showing. He's like
craft they made.
The arts and crafts
beautiful
project.
Art. Yeah.
They're like, oh, this is such a vital part of the game. We didn't know if we wanted to show it or not. In the trailer, and I was like, wait a minute. That was the vital part, like not like Chris blowing Etha like me away in the like that was your big moment. Like I saw it the wrong way, but but no, like we've published, like, because I love the stuff about the play tests, because again, like it's how much is actually going to be in the I think with the play test it gives a lot of room for speculation, because obviously it's been built. But is it going to make it into the actual game? Like we know people played 1.5. That's where a lot of the physical copies of, like, I think the 40% build came from, were all playtester copies. So it's interesting to see. Like we even when we did the I think our last major article before the trailer came out on the playtest, is where we announced the name, was going to be Village, and then the inventory system, where there was 2 separate play tests, where some people played on an RE2 style inventory, and then some people played on an RE4 style inventory, and then the trailer hits, and we get this kind of like almost amalgamation of both of them.
Yes. That's again, well, real quick, I still think Village is a dumb name, but onto that about how you don't know what's going to be in it, what's not going to be in it. And that's kind of how I go into content when I make it is this going to create interesting, fun discussion? Is this, because that's what I'm interested in, is in things that create discussion. And with a lot of these leaks and rumors that are so early on and you don't know if they're true or not, but they're not ruining the story. I just find this stuff interesting and fun. And if it's not true, it creates a discussion. It helps you think about things differently. It helps you think, oh, how would I like it to go that way? Would I like it? Wouldn't I like it? And then it encourages discussion within the community. And that's what I'm most interested in. So that's why when you ask what's my favorite type of Resident Evil content other creators make, it's podcasts, because I like discussions. Yeah. So that's kind of why I like to get on that hype.
So we know you're working on Vigil.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Moon's developing it. I'm just writing it and directing.
JJ should, let's just get it straight. JJ's taking all the credit for Vigil.
Trying not to. There is a team of really talented people. Yeah.
So we know you have a hand in Vigil. But what else are you working on, and what are your kind of ultimate ambitions for the Residents, the Roe brand? Excuse me.
Okay, so obviously Vigil is like the passion project, the thing we're all working towards. I'm obviously going to continue with the news, and it's only going to increase as Resident Evil Village, drops more information in August. We're going to be on top of that. Ali is currently in the process of moving. It'll be finalized soon. As soon as he's done with that, he's going to get on. We're planning a lot of really cool live streams and podcasts with the voice actors. We're going to be doing a lot more of those. I just had a baby, so things have been a little bit slower on my end. But, I'm starting to get back into working and having time with my family, and I'm going to start to be putting out content again. So content's going to be ramping up here shortly. So expect to do, a lot of interviews and Let's Plays with voice actors. Expect a lot more discussion and news on Resident Evil Village. Expect more on Vigil, too, soon in the near future. We're actually going to be showcasing some stuff here because, we've been quiet for a while. And what else? We do our yearly Toys for Tots. It's one of the funnest things we do because we go all out and we have an event to raise money for Toys for Tots. It's like one of my favorite things to do every year for the channel. So we're going to be doing Toys for Tots 2020. That's going to be coming up in December. And then we have our Rotoberfest where we just play a ton of different horror games in October. Yeah, it's with the Ro channel. It's very much discussion videos in the summer and news. And then when it gets into fall and, into fall and winter, that's when we start doing our big events and all these cool things that we do every year. So lots coming up. I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited. And just with the channel itself, my goal is to just continue creating a place for Resident Evil and survival horror fans to come together and make content that I enjoy, that others enjoy. And, just doing what we love to do with Vigil and writing our own survival horror story there. So yeah, that's what I got. Yeah, offhand.
Oh, brilliant. No, and it obviously goes without saying, we're super proud as fellow Resident Evil creators, how well you've moved, how well you've kind of risen through the ranks and the community we've established. Aside from YouTube, where can people find you?
Everywhere.
On the interwebs.
Everywhere. So you guys can find us on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can find us on YouTube, Twitch for our live streams. We do a lot of big events on YouTube. We live, but we do a lot of casual streams on Twitch. You guys can find us on podcast services like iTunes and stuff for the ROE Podcast. You guys can connect with our community. We have an awesome community in the Discord. That's discord.gg/ROENETWORK, ROENETWORK. And there we just talk about Resident Evil and other survival horror games and just whatever. It's a really cool community that's run by the ROE Force. So it's a safe, fun place for people. It's not crazy hostile or anything. We got mods there that are really doing a great job. Where else? Yeah, and then if you'd like to support Vigil or just what we do in general, we have the Patreon, and I think that's covering all of them. Everywhere, ROENETWORK, ROENETWORK on all the platforms.
No, thank you.
Yeah, y'all are a little bit of all. I think y'all are a little bit more than all over the place.
Too many different things. Yeah. Yeah, well, thank you guys very much for having me on. It was a lot of fun. I really appreciate it. You guys are doing a great job. You're killing it over at BHD. Keep up with it. I'm looking forward to listening to more of your guys' podcasts with other people in the community.
No, thank you very much. And obviously from us at Biohazard Declassified, thank you all for tuning in. I'm extremely grateful you've all taken time to check out this podcast. And hopefully this is a start of many, many collaborations between Biohazard Declassified and Residents of Evil, or the ROENETWORK.
Yeah, for sure. It'll be awesome. We're partnered. We got a lot of stuff we're going to be doing in the future. Cool. Thank you, everybody, for coming to watch this.
Yeah. Thank you very much. All the best, guys. Thank you.
Bye.